Welcome to session 3 of Know, Grow, and Own Your Career. And today we're going to be focusing on owning your career, your work, your career, and life. And it's in response to the first two sessions. Now that you've got the first two underway, how does that really help you to take ownership of your life? And through it, how your work, your career will come together in actually supporting the things that you have in your life and the goals. Before we get started, though, I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, and I'll be showing a video from our sponsor from Dow. So here is Dow, and thank you so much, Dow, for sponsoring and allowing us to be able to do more of these type of workshops for our guests here.
At Dow, wonder is the foundation of every great achievement. It's what bonds us together, pushes us to keep finding solutions, and lets us create something from nothing. Without that spark, there is no science, no creativity, no thirst for knowledge, or hunger for change. But with it, the breakthroughs our customers need most are just one innovation away. As we work to create a more connected world, a more circular economy, and more climate-conscious technologies and solutions, we're designing products alongside our customers with their biggest challenges in mind, so we can grow with the world around us, starting with our promise to reach zero carbon emissions by 2050. Every solution we find is fueled by wonder and powered by science. It's this fuel that drove our past and propels us to the future. Wait until you see where wonder takes us next.
All right. Thanks again to Dow for sponsoring our time. And again, it's through sponsors like Dow that we're able to provide this type of content. And even today, my hope is that from our conversation, not only will you have a chance to better yourself, but companies like Dow, through their employees, will have a better chance to be contributors to the Dow mission and vision. But more than anything else, there'll be a better relationship, what I would say like a symbiotic connection that allows not only the employer, but the employee to really benefit from what I think is a mutual growth opportunity, and also have clarity on when it is time to maybe grow away from each other, or provide opportunities for the employee to grow in different directions and have a compelling reason to do so. And some of the things that I'll share in today's session is really going to go back to our first two. So if you haven't had a chance to go through the first two sessions, I really want to encourage you to take a look and to watch them. There's worksheets that are also available for each one, and if you'd like to get a copy of those worksheets that go along with, please go ahead and message me. But for those that are attending today's session, like Jeet and Aaron, I'll be going ahead and emailing them out to you. And just a note that I don't email them ahead of time, because I think the best way to learn is just to listen, to passively listen, engage, have conversations, ask questions during the session, because I really want you to allow this, as we talked about in workshop 2, to just be informational, right? It's allowing you to become aware of the things that maybe you didn't realize that you didn't know. And then from that, we can continue to engage. And the worksheets are then to help you to test the things that you thought you knew, and what are some of the things that would help you in the next steps as you go. So with that, some of the things that I'd love to really go through in today's session, and I named it like own, because I think once you have clarity from session 1, we talked about like, what are the challenges? What are the symptoms? And taking a step back, the bigger picture might be is if you're engaging in situations and you're realizing that you're finding areas of challenge, then it's a great opportunity for you to take a step back and say, maybe I'm going about my workplace a little bit wrong, or I came in with a certain vision or a certain expectation of my job, the things that I'll do, how they would want to do this in the company that might have been a little bit more my perspective, the company I'm projecting on to the workplace versus what the company really is about, what the job really is, what it's going to ask me to do, and be able to shift and become more agile in the way I show up. And so workshop one was to help you to say, okay, what are some of those challenges that you face? And what are some of the competencies that it could start help you to see that you could be deficient in your leadership skill sets to be able to properly come back to the work site to maybe get better feedback or even year-end reviews because your plan of attack was a little bit more how you thought it would be, right? And then in section two is once you've identified what those growth opportunities are, then you have an opportunity to now use that workplace as a space to grow that skill set, to be able to become better at what you do. And our hope is that from it, you also are building trust in communication with the person that's leading you as you help them across this development square. And as you go through those four sides, you'll have those conversations to help them to understand what you do know, what you don't know. And I think a lot of people sometimes have a hard time really engaging in those talks because it can feel like it's very intimidating and it can be very challenging to have those very transparent conversations that could come back with a lot of those feedbacks and critiques that you have. Now, in this third session, what we're really looking for you to do is like, how do you own this workplace? How do you manage the stakeholders and the people that you're engaging with in a way to help develop yourself, not only to make yourself better, but it also helps make your company better. And so when you start seeing that this work is a spot that you can better perform and you could practice some of these opportunities to really contribute and become a better employee, then what you want to see is now this workplace all of a sudden becomes a training ground for you for your goals. And the one thing that I can't really do for you is what is your life vision? And I've had a chance to ask every single one of my clients, like, what does your vision look like? And a lot of times they get responses like, well, I want to become a manager. I want to be a director. I want to lead these type of projects. I want to lead these type of events. And I'm like, that's great. That's a great vision of what it looks like for your career, but holistically for you. That could be your end destination, but for you, what is that going to translate to? And I've always talked about in my webinars, like work has always been a great place to make me, I think, what I've always wanted to desire to be an amazing husband and a father, right? And those are personal to me, but I think professionally it has always grown me. And so, for example, learning to engage with people from different type of cultures and different type of work styles has really helped me to become a better father when it comes to understanding my wife and how she wants to do things. And even though things don't make sense, like it's learning to engage in a way that's more relational and really seeing like it might not be that she doesn't know what to do, but she comes from a different angle and allowing even that to help me to present what is her perspective on things and help her to achieve her goals as I'm trying to achieve my goals as well. And then now that I'm a dad, I've got an 8-year-old child. My daughter has been really a great playing ground for me to help develop her. And all these tools that I shared with you, believe it or not, it is embedded in how I develop my daughter and help her to grow. And anywhere from, her having a high fear of water as a little kid, she would hate it when water would splash on her face, even from a young age before she was 1 year old, to now like loving every time we go to the beach, to being in the water, splashing in the waves, and to the point where now she's actually surfing, right? I get to take her out on water and go surfing with her. So we go surfing together. I taught her how to snowboard. And one of the things that we're now picking up is golf. And she's actually learning to golf. And we're using these same principles as a way to help her to develop and grow. And from it, again, she's able to own life. She enjoys all the challenges that she faces because she's able to do that in a safe way, as well as seeing it as a way to sharpen herself and make her better. And so, what I want us to do in our session today is really to take the time to like identify what are these things that we're wanting to do to help you to create a better life. And when you own your career, you own your job, and you're taking ownership of what happens, then what you'll find is then you feel like you can take ownership of your own life. And then your life goals and things that you want to achieve is going to be a lot more clear. So I have a bunch of illustrations that I'm going to talk through. These next slides are not necessarily tools, but again, it's how do you take everything we talked about and put into a picture. And I hope you can see yourself in these. And my hope is that, again, your next step as you start working through knowing your career objectives and allowing yourself to grow through them is to take ownership of the life that you have. Okay. So in this illustration, I want you to start envisioning yourself. Take a step back in your life, in your work, and you've kind of seen all these things that are out there. And there's a lot of opportunities out there. There might be opportunities for you to take training sessions, right? There might be growth opportunities for you. And even right now, you're like this person watching me share something on a Zoom call. And I want you to now realize like, what would it look like if you actually had a goal? What would it look like and how you would engage? Because now you're really trying to grow yourself. And what's important to realize is when you take ownership of these things, now no longer are you consuming information, no longer are you just accepting what comes to you, but now you're going to be seeking out for things that are specific and proactively working on learning these things for yourself. And because leadership development is not just about like getting all the content and hoping one day you'll have a chance to use it. Because realistically, just because you see something and know something doesn't mean that you're going to be competent in actually doing it, right? We talked about it in session 2. But what I want you to do is now that you have a vision for something, you are now seeking content to start taking the phase 1 of saying like, hey, I don't know what I don't know. And I'm engaging and I'm watching this because I want to know what is it that I am blind to? What are my blind spots in this? And what do I need to start achieving? And when you have that type of a goal, what's great is that you have the ability to start advocating for yourself. And so when you see yourself in these type of situations, I want you to consider like when you're out there and you're watching like videos like these, or you're on YouTube content, or you're watching things on, let's say, even on Instagram, on LinkedIn. I want you to engage. Go seek out what you need because you learned that in session 1. I need to know these type of challenges. I need to work on this specifically. And when you craft this roadmap, which is the picture on the right, you craft this roadmap of your developmental journey, then you'll have an opportunity to not only engage at a high level, but you'll also be willing to ask questions and make these conversations more like your own, which is what I encourage each one of you to do, right? Like as you're here, please engage, take ownership. How is this going to help you solve some pain points and some problems that you're facing in your career? And I'd love for you to share those and allow me to serve you more directly. And that way, this webinar is not just you're an attendee at the webinar, but I want you to really come in and act like this webinar is for you. So for me, what I used to do, and I still do today, is when I attend webinars, I am active in the chat box asking questions. I make sure that I let them know, like, hey, I'm going to ask a lot of questions. I'm very interested in the subject. And if you're available afterwards, I'd love to create a meeting with you because I am definitely engaged and want to take ownership of my goals. And I see this webinar, this person can provide me the fuel I need, the tools I need, and some of the training that I would need to become better at what I do. And as I go out and I seek out these type of people, it really helps me to be a lot more engaged and excited because the future of what I'm trying to create is becoming a lot more clearer and clearer in what I do. And as you do that, the next step that it's going to allow you to do is have stakeholder conversations. In this model, it's like a picture of, let's say, a person with their manager, right? And when you talk to the people that are going to be maybe evaluating you in terms of your how you're progressing in your job or how you're displaying the skills that you want to do, what's really great is like these people that are overseeing the goals that you have, they're in charge and making sure those outcomes take place in the way your employer does. So if you work for a company XYZ, then company XYZ has a certain way that they want you to perform your talents and your skill sets. Let's say it's your engineering skills. Well, it may be different than your previous employer ABC, but XYZ is helping you to grow into a trajectory that maps out with the way they need it to do. And your ability to take your conversations, to talk, to have conversations that helps you to explain, like in my previous company, we did it this way, and I'm more than open to doing it your way. Would you be willing to help me, as we talked about in session two, right? Like, could you do and could I watch? And maybe could you do and could I help so that I can start learning the skill sets in the way that you want to? Then now it becomes this goal is no longer a company's goal, it becomes a shared goal. And what's really important about having a shared goal that is communicated between two people is not only does it empower you and energize you as you can map out what is realistic for yourself and having conversations of maybe this diagram maybe not being 100% accurate in terms of how you see it. And you're not necessarily, again, being disrespectful or asking them to change, but it's having the ability to understand where the gaps are and being able to advocate it so that you can win, right? And this is what I think it would be really helpful for you to learn is in these conversations, have those skill sets and learn how to navigate through them in a way that will help you to be successful, but it's helping you to be successful as it's helping your company to be successful in that way, right? So as you continue to grow in ownership and having these conversations with, again, your stakeholders, your managers, and it doesn't always have to be people that are overseeing you. A lot of times your peers, you can say, hey, I am working on this goal of being more collaborative. What are some of the things that I could do to become more collaborative? And they might say like, wow, I love the way you ask questions. I love the way that you listen to what I have to say, but I would really enjoy it. And it can be contributive if you were to share your thoughts and feelings and your goals to what you want to do. Because then I feel like not only am I getting what I need out of this project, but I'm able to deliver this in a way that gives you what you need. So therefore, the way you're doing things is not only energizing me, but I want to be a great team player and make sure that I'm doing this in a way that energizes you. And in fact, I had a conversation just like that yesterday with someone that was really good at listening and really good at sharing back on what she heard and some thoughts and ideas. But what she didn't realize that she didn't do was advocate for what her goals were and what she wanted to achieve. And so it wasn't until we were going through the conversation that I said, I don't still understand what are your goals? Um, and I know it sounds like I'm very much telling you what I need, and it could come off very maybe prescriptive in what we're trying to do. But I'm able to be prescriptive when there is space and there's absence of other structures that I need to align to in this way. And I think that's what I want you to think about collaboration is like, if you're constantly receiving somebody else's thoughts and ideas, but you don't provide constraints that makes this a win-win situation for you, then without realizing it, you will probably consistently start feeling drained by the work that you do and not feel like it's your work that's helping you. It's more of their work that is helping them, and you're hoping that you become better in what you do, right? So that is less on ownership. It is more on, I would say, it is engagement with other people, but again, it's more heavily on their side than your side in what you do, right? So I think what's really important is for you to have those conversations. And there's a great comment here in the chat box. I'll take a moment to read this. It says you're really interested in taking up ownership to implement a process to improve workflow in certain domains. And the feature of rejection keeps you from taking a step back and need to grow out of this mindset. Absolutely. And a lot of people feel like rejection is something that makes you feel inferior. And I don't think that should be seen that way. I see rejection in two things. And I think a lot of this I learned from a sales perspective because in sales, you get rejected a lot. Number one is I might not have fully understood the situation, the goals and the outcomes, and what are the constraints that they have. And so therefore, when I share some of the things that are my thoughts on, how to make the workflow a better space, or how does it help better, they may feel like it's only making it worse, and they may not understand why that's a win-win for them. So it's having some time to better understand the landscape. And then secondly, it's being able to communicate in a way and helping them to understand why it's beneficial for them, why it's beneficial for you, and why it's beneficial for everybody in the long run. And maybe what are the risks that you perceive, as well as the outcome that you're trying to mutually achieve, and how those risks are better for the outcome, even though it may not come in a way that's ideal for other people, right? So again, going back to like again the failure of rejection, again, don't avoid it. It's actually, in fact, a great way to get feedback on your communication skills so that you can, again, you're trying to see this as growth opportunities and how you perform, and don't let failure be something to avoid, because then you can't properly assess your own skill sets in leadership. Okay. Remember, work is a playground for you to grow your leadership skills. And if you in a playground and you're playing with, let's say, like the monkey bars that you're going across and you fall, well, you don't want to avoid it. You want to train yourself so you can complete it in that way. Okay. So the next illustration I want you to think about and what we've done is what I just said. It's a practice field. I want you to think about what are the skill sets that you want to engage in. So here in this illustration, what I wanted to try to capture are different things that people are practicing when it comes to leadership. So for example, this person on the right, she might be practicing networking skills and a way to engage with other people in what they do. This person in the middle is probably practicing presentation skills and how do you articulate thoughts and ideas to other people. The person on the left is probably working on, how do you train other people? How do you show other people skill sets that you do? And these are all different skill sets that you need or competencies that help you to become better in becoming a leader of other people, which I would say is manager. But again, for me, these are all great skills that I use every day in my goals to become the ultimate dad and father, as well as husband to my wife, is what I shared. So if you look at the work as seeing as opportunities to work on skill sets that you want to develop, then being able to identify what are some of the tasks and the skill sets that your job offers, and not being afraid of failure, kind of like what the previous comment was doing, but seeing this as a growth opportunity. And we talked about in workshop 2, right? If you see something as a growth opportunity, then what you're going to have to do is then identify what does this pathway look like in developing yourself from growing a skill set and knowing what it really involves, taking some time to observe, ask questions of somebody actually performing it. So let's say it's presentation skills. You may ask questions to understand what is presentation about that I didn't realize I didn't know. And often at times when I teach people about some of the things that I do in presenting, they don't realize all the different nuances and skill sets, as well as best practices that I engage in my presentation to make sure that I'm effectively communicating. And then taking the time to hear more about it, assess your skill sets in each one, start performing it and performing over and over again, making sure that you have someone to manage you out of your pit of despair, so that you don't get stuck in it. And then from it, as you get better at it, you'll be able to do presentations with continued practice, no problem. It's just managing what that looks like. And so for me, like a lot of my coaches that I develop, I take the time to not only demonstrate it, um, sometimes in this session, I will do most of it and let them lead some of it. And then in this stage, it's letting them run the presentation, but being available to step in if they have thoughts or questions or areas that they've forgotten and they want me to help out. And then from it, they can do it all on their own. And so this is from, again, this illustration is from workshop 2, but for you, once you've taken the time to identify, what are the skill sets maybe your stakeholders asking you to work on, maybe it's having a vision for yourself on what that looks like. It's now taking the time to say, okay, Where are these opportunities existing in my current job so that I can put these into practice and start owning my skill sets, owning my assets, becoming more valuable not only to myself, but to my company and to my team in a way that helps me to grow. And so then your work is this practice field. It's a big playground that allows you to find these opportunities. And the best one I think a lot of times people to underlook is also joining maybe your employer network, right? Sometimes there's like ERGs, there's BRGs, a lot of these volunteer opportunities within a group at work. And by doing that, not only do you contribute to your company overall and creating a better community, I think there's corporate goals a lot of times you'll have for your job, but this also helps you to become better in practicing things that are low risk, right? Like, because they're not directly impacting your actual job outcomes, but it's also volunteer based, right? So it helps you to grow at the pace that you have and managing those conversations that you have with the leaders of them, right? So what's really important to also, again, understand and realize is that as you are practicing these skills, you want to find a safe space where you can, what I would say, fail forward. And again, ERGs, BRGs, other employer networks are great places to start, but it's taken by assessing where you have these opportunities to do. And then you're going to take ownership. You're going to proactively go out and find ways that you can put these into your own practices that you have. Okay. Next, I want to talk about like as you take ownership, now you're starting to see where the company's goals and your personal goals start having that personal symbiotic relationship. So I mentioned just earlier, by having awareness of, let's say, your company's goals is how do you contribute to the company overall, not just by the work that you do in your job, but are there areas of, let's say, corporate citizenship? I think that's a term that sometimes they use. And by serving in areas like your ERG or again your other employer networks, they might be passions that you do, whether it's cultural for your background or it could be mutual interests. I know one company they have like a pickleball ERG, like just sports and health and wellness. But finding those areas that will not only contribute to your corporate citizenship, but these are areas that you can now not only engage with to play pickleball, but start practicing these leadership skills that you want to develop in organizing, communicating, or leading that employee network, or maybe even just a project, trying out these new leadership skills that we discussed that you've assessed from your manager that you should start practicing on and finding a safe place to do that is going to help you to continue to develop not only your professional life, but it's also going to help you to grow your personal life and what you do. And this is where a lot of times you hear these concepts about like, what does it look like to have, work-life balance? I think work-life balance is a lot easier when you could find these overlapping areas of your personal growth opportunities and how they can be benefited from your work growth opportunities. And so that you're actually killing two birds with one stone, not always trying to, work really hard in one area and then you're having to maybe rest in your personal area, or when you're working really hard in your personal life you're having to take a step back and break in your work life, right? And it doesn't have to be what I call a zero-sum game. It's one of those things that a win-win situation can happen. So again, think about what are some of the things that you can start identifying as goals for you professionally to develop in a way that would help you to work personally and developing yourself as a person, such that as you grow at work and you find these challenges, they don't always seem to be sapping away energy and you don't have a place to serve these in your own personal life. I think for me, one of the great things that like my work skills, leadership skills has also served outside of just my family has been like in volunteering for my local daughter's school, right? Being a part of the PTA, having to do a lot of things where managing up is very important in the PTA. So even though like I'm not the PTA president, in fact, I haven't had an official title at the PTA, but taking the time to do networking, taking the time to build influence and relationships, finding small tasks that I can do at the school to not only earn trust and build trust from the people that are around there, but also allowing myself to find out what are some of the things that I want to serve at the PTA, that by serving in the PTA on this side, it'll also help me to continue to um, smooth out some areas of growth opportunities in my professional life too. Again, they're always going to be working in concert with one another and allowing that to create a mutual value that not only, again, is your goals that you want to have in your life, that pathway that you're working with is supported by your work, but it's also supported by your personal life and what you have. And that's what's going to create more ownership in what you do. Next, I want to give you an opportunity to think about like, okay, what is feedback, right? And so we talked earlier about how conversations with your manager, year-end reviews. And a lot of times people get blindsided by the year-end reviews because they felt like maybe they did a solid, superb work or exceeds work. Sometimes those are the ratings that companies use. But then they come back and they say it's just maybe it's just normal work, right? On a scale of 1 to 5, they thought they were going to get a 5, at worst a 4, but they said you really got a 3, maybe a 3.5. And what's important to realize is, what is that feedback like? Now, if you are maybe the judge of your own work and you did things in your own mind of how you thought you heard that and really didn't take the time to collaborate, communicate, and do check-ins along the way, it's very easy to take this idea of what you wanted and start iterating it in a way that works towards your vision. But collaboration is very important for you to iterate things in a way that not only works for you, but it's going to work for the people that are going to be engaged in the work that you do. And so this is where having conversations again with your manager, your peers, and other stakeholders are really important to help you to learn how to think how other people may want things and what are the other possibilities of what you have. So going back to say, what does this mirror look like? Are you becoming not only the person that you want to be, which will always become who we want to be, independent if we lived on, let's say, our lone island. But what's important is who we are and how other people see us as well. And so, do other people see us the way we want to be seen? And again, this is not necessarily we're looking for validation for other people and that our identity is worn in that way. But by becoming a better leader for other people and becoming a great leader means that other people do value you and they see you as somebody that is what I would say worthy of being followed. So if you are worthy of being followed, it means that, hey, this person not only can do things the way I want them to do it, but they learn how to challenge me to do things in a way that I didn't realize could be better. And that's what you could do in your conversations with your manager. Other people on your team also are engaging with you in ways that helps them to feel empowered. And sometimes, a lot of times, we feel like that just might be doing things the way they want us to do it. But that's not true. It's us being able to do things that bring out the best in others because we see things. And that's leadership, right? Is learning how to challenge other people. So when you look at yourself in the mirror, who do you see? Do you see the person that you envision through the work that you do and your family and your personal goals that you have, whether it's family, it's career, it's job based, like those are starting to shine through and emerge in what you have. And that mirror will help you to see like not only your strengths, your weaknesses, but it's your blind spots and those areas that maybe other people saw and allows you to start working on those in that way. So seek feedback. In fact, a lot of my colleagues love using the term feedback is a gift. It is a gift because it helps you to have things that you cannot give to yourself. It helps you to see things that you cannot see yourself. And these things that a lot of people see as critique, it's just growth areas. And it helps you to go back through that loop and seeking out what are other areas that's going to help you to balance out your leadership profile in a way that makes you a better person, what you have. Next, I like to also have you consider this thing called sharpening the saw. And the sharpening the saw analogy is one of Stephen Covey's habits. And there's this great story that I think about all the time when I think it reminds me of myself too. There were these two people that were chopping down trees in a forest, and there was a contest out there. And I'll give you the real shortened version of it. Is basically there was a young person and the old man, and the young person's like, man, I am stronger, I'm faster, I'm younger, I'm healthier than this older person, so I should blow this person out like no, like there's no contest. And so when the whistle started, he would be chopping, chopping, and chopping down all these trees, and he would keep going and going and going. In fact, he could hear his competitor chopping at their pace, and it seemed to be slower. So he was like, as long as I keep chopping faster than this guy is, then I'll be able to chop more trees. And then, a couple hours later, when I was around lunchtime, he's like, I think this is a great time. While he's resting, I'm going to keep chopping. So he kept chopping and chopping, chopping, while the other person had taken a break. And then by the end of the day, when they were counting all the trees, he was surprised to learn that the older person actually won. And the young person went up to the older person and said, wow, how is it that you were chopping and I was making sure that I was chopping more, I was hitting more chops at a tree than you were. And in fact, during the time at lunch, I didn't even take a lunch break. I kept chopping away at it and you had won. And the old man says, like, well, it wasn't that I wasn't chopping as many times as you were. That was the reason why I won. It was the fact that as I was chopping, I was making sure that I was hitting my strikes at the right place. And I was also taking the time while you were continuing away during lunch to replenish my energy by having lunch, getting some rest so my muscles can recover, and actually taking time to sharpen my saw. And I was out there sharpening and honing the blade so that I could continue to cut with precision. And what I mean by that is always going back and looking at what are your goals and how do you make sure that you're staying true to your goals. And sometimes it's very easy to get caught up and say, hey, I'm going to start here and this is where I'm going to go, but allow either it's power dynamics of your manager making requests, or it could be because of different interests that gets you distracted. But what's most important is wherever you go, that you're being very strategic once you do, you're measuring yourself with KPIs and always making sure that you're working smarter, not harder. And that's what the illustration is trying to do is what are the trainings that you need to do to continue to identify where you can grow your capacity, you can deliver the best energy, that you can always have clarity in the skill sets that you're practicing, that helps you to not only increase the influence of the people around you, but also it's reflecting back on the mutual shared goals. And that's going back to session one, right? Like, what are the things that we would want to say, like, the areas that maybe I can grow when it comes to the different competencies? And these are all like slides from session one. But as I am growing, what are the different competency levels that I have? And so if I look at, let's say, this growth mindset competency and I've practiced it over time, do I need to go back and sharpen my growth mindset? And on the right here, we're talking about like different ways that you can sharpen your growth mindset as your career grows, right? So just because you've practiced growth mindset, for example, as a skill set, it doesn't mean that you're done with it. It's finding new opportunities in new ways, discovering them maybe by watching videos that helps you to, model some other things that we talked about in workshop two, where this slide is from, that helps you to go through these stages of growth that allows you to continue to sharpen your sword when it comes to the skill sets that you have. And these could be not only technical skill sets, but leadership skill sets as well. So always reinventing yourself and growing yourself and investing yourself is really going to be important for you to own your career. Because the moment that you are no longer at the top of your game, you're going to feel like you have less ownership of your career and you're not going to be able to perform the skill set that you want to perform in. Okay. Next, I wanted to talk about this part of like understanding your year in review. I alluded to that in two illustrations before, like the importance of year in review, how it provides you feedback in the areas of growth. But don't wait to the end of the year to start that process. What's important for you to do is like when you take ownership of your career, then you're really invested in what that outcome looks like. Then you're going to make sure that you have conversations with different stakeholders in the different areas of growth objectives that maybe you've identified that you want to achieve, and how this work that you're doing is going to allow you to practice that so that you can have conversations with your stakeholders to help you to determine, are you on right track, right? So as you go on the year-end review, sure, you might just look at, did I cross the finish line? And did I cross that finish line in a good amount of time? And if that's all you're measuring your outcome on, then you could sorely be disappointed on what the feedback actually comes in. In fact, what's going to be important is for you to make different milestones along the way. It's maybe having constant feedback and making sure you're having conversations on a monthly basis with the key stakeholders along the way. It's taking time to maybe learn new skills that you're going to implement and try, and communicating back that, hey, I learned this new skill to work on some of the things that you mentioned. I love to hear, how do you think that this is starting to work in some of the work that we do? And as they give you feedback there, you're going back to the drawing board, communicating that and continuing to practice those in a way. But then from that, having other conversations with like mentors or sponsors. Again, mentors are people that are helping you with a specific skill set that you want to practice. So you might be identified a mentor to help you with that, or a sponsor that is really helping you to move forward in your career. And I think it's really important to think about, like, your mentor, your sponsor may not necessarily be your manager. And in fact, it is very helpful. And I would challenge you to find each one of those to be different people that aren't your manager. And the reason why that's also important is because they're able to provide you more objective guidelines and ways that you can practice these skill sets. And sponsors are ones that are really going to look out for the company's goals and have a more strategic outlook in your career. And they're advocating for you and seeing how you perform these other conversations with other people to see if you're someone that is maybe within the corporate culture and corporate ready to progress in this career. And a lot of times these sponsors are the ones that know the hidden jobs or the hidden goals that aren't necessarily publicly announced, but they're the ones that are scoping out in the field and scouting who's the right people to put in these benches. And a lot of times they have great influence with the people that make those type of decisions, right? But you want to make sure that as you have these conversations, you're quantifying these in a way that's measurable for your growth. You're qualifying these by making sure that you feel like these are also helping you, such that at the end of the year, when you have those reviews, those conversations are neither a surprise. And in fact, I find a lot of people that feel as though when there's some information that might not be accurate in the year-end review, you take a humble process to say, wow, I'm sorry that you felt this way. A couple of months earlier, we had this conversation, and I thought I had made those pivots along the way to make account for those things. And I talked to my team about implementing some of these other goals. And sure, they didn't show up the way we had wanted to, but it doesn't necessarily mean that my leadership skill is lacking in my attempt to try to learn these and have conversations along the way. And I've actually had a few of my clients, when I share that information with them, that they've actually able to increase their year-end performance review because they clarified something that was seen maybe where there was a gap, or the manager wasn't available throughout the year. Sometimes they take leave of absence, or they do something else, and they weren't privy to that knowledge. But if you provide that evidence that you kept track with along the way, then they're compelled to not only have conversations with these other stakeholders along the way, but they could also have that evidence to make those changes and updates at the end of the year. Again, more important, not that you cross the finish line and that you're able to do it at a certain time, but it's how you cross that finish line. Again, the year-end review is more of a way to diagnose that process. And are you able to not barely come across the finish line, but it's how do you finish very strong. And this last illustration I want to share with you as we wrap up our 3 series is realistically taking ownership. Again, having ownership of your career is really realizing that this career is serving you personally. It's not necessarily it's helping just the company, but the company is providing you a playground, the assets, the people, the mirror, the feedback that you need to be valuable anywhere. And most importantly, it's valuable to yourself because you're able to do better and you're able to achieve goals that you couldn't do before. And this career has made you better in that way. So, what's important to realize is what competencies are you good at? Number one, like think about what are the strengths that you currently have? What are the weaknesses that you could develop? And then having the practice opportunity at your career, at your job to develop those skills. Again, whether it's at your current job by asking for or advocating for new projects or for advocating to be considered for other opportunities, but it's also joining your employee network, right? Your ERG or BRG or other areas that allow you to function and practice leadership skill sets that you may not have opportunities to do. And then from it, learning how to collaborate and have communication skill sets with not only your stakeholders, but it's your mentors and your sponsors. And from that, allowing them to help you create a trajectory and a growth path that it may not look as aggressive as you want to. You may felt like you should have been considered for more opportunities, but realistically, more importantly, it's being considered for the things that are important to you for your growth at your rate. And if you knock it out faster, that's fine. But what's more importantly is again, is not the execution, it's the communication with the different people that allows you to feel like you understand yourself, you see yourself accurately. And whether it's at your current company that you'll be continuing to practice on, or your next company that you go to, you feel like you have ownership in what you do. So, as a former vice president of operations for a company at an energy company in my past, one of the things that I was really clear on in shaping these out for all my employees that reported to me was helping them to also understand that my company is always trying to grow and take advantage of everything that you have to offer to market your skill sets. And how marketable your skill sets are in the marketplace is how much I can share that revenue with you, and that determines your pay. And so I would ask them, like, hey, this is the way our company is going. Here are the opportunities that are presenting because of that growth. If you would like to be a part of it, I would love to provide you some training opportunities and start shifting the skill sets that you would have to practice in your day-to-day activities to start reflecting what I need it to be for your next role that we're trying to move into. And if that is not a desire for you, that's fine. I just want you to do an amazing job of where you want to go. And if our company grows one way and where you want to go is another way, I am more than happy to write the best letter of recommendation that would make you glowing and amazing to hire somewhere else. I just want you to have that clear communication with me so that we can make sure that our goals and your goals are always aligned when we're together, but where they may have to separate out, that we are supporting you in your next venture. And maybe in your network, you will have people that you would refer back to us as great employees that we could help them to develop in that way. And that's how I want you to see the relationships from an employee perspective is these are all a playground. It's a great place for you to become better. It's by taking advocacy and ownership of not only your future and your goals and starting to find ways that it aligns with your current job and communicating that with the stakeholders on the areas of growth that you want to do. Remember, your job title, the roles, responsibilities you have is just a starting point to not only discover your strengths, discover your weaknesses and your growth opportunities to where you want to go. And when you do all that, I think ownership, another word that I like to use with that is agency. You finally have agency. And I think agency is one of the most important things that I think differentiates people that are hireable and promotable versus employees that are good to have and maybe not someone that I can see possibly in the future of our company. Because people that have ownership and agency will tend to speak up and advocate and always tend to make the company better along the goals that they want to achieve for the future. They're a little bit more strategic in thinking. The thing that I find with a lot of STEM employees are they're very responsible. And so responsibility isn't necessarily bad, but over indexing on responsibility, where maybe you tend to become to play it safe, for example, and you're risk adverse, means that there really isn't a growth mindset. Really, meaning that you're only willing to do things that you know that the outcome is going to provide maybe a high percentage of outcome in a way that feels comfortable for you. But a lot of times, taking in agency and ownership for something means that you're going to have to be willing to try new things to get some outcomes that might not be the same. It could be a little bit different, but it allows for, during that failure process that is measurable, a chance to discover those growth opportunities that down the road, as the company is required to shift and pivot in new areas that you may not be ready for, right? So by having more agency and ownership versus responsibility, it provides you a little bit more resiliency by having a growth mindset to take on additional risk and to be able to identify those areas of growth, to be able to be more ready for the things down in the future. So, as I wrap up session 3, my hope is that as you see these things for yourself, that you'll take an opportunity to use session 1 to identify these things for yourself, that you will then, number 2, identify the people that are going to help you to grow. And from that, you will create greater ownership in your life. You'll have a greater engagement at work, and your life overall, you see as a way of not a zero-sum game where you're giving up more of your personal life for your work life, and your work life is suffering because of your personal life. But it's a win-win situation as you're mutually growing towards goals that you want to achieve for each other. And you don't have to be married to each other for the life of the goal. You're always looking for the opportunity that's going to allow you to perform at your best and grow at your best, as well as help the organization that you're working for perform at their best and grow towards the goals that they want to achieve as well. So with that, I'm going to conclude our session for today. I'll go ahead and stop the recording, but if you have any other questions or things that I could answer, feel free to stick around. I'd love to answer them and help you to find ways that you can incorporate this for your own career as well. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you in our next webinar coming up next month.